Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. Black heart, black mind, signing black in, shining again. Hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. Because we're dealing with an unnatural situation right now, unfortunately, we have to come to grips with an unnatural solution. As a Muslim, there are two things I hate: sexual licentiousness or lechery and celibacy, because these are two extremes. In one extreme, you just go out there and you just make that dick available to everybody. Get as much as you can. On the opposite extreme, you live unnaturally and you forsake the opposite gender, and neither one is really healthy. Unfortunately, we're in a situation in which the balance between the two is not available. Nothing that is even healthy is actually available without some greater harm coming with it. Even just heterosexual sex has some greater harm attached to it for men at this point. We're in a scenario, as Western men, you are living in the geographical location of that scenario in the West. And that scenario is one in which women want to weaponize the male libido against the male, because they hate male heterosexuality. They don't hate it in the 13 to 7% of men they actually all want to screw, and for whom they're willing to compete, and on whom they're willing to spend the rest of our money. But for the rest of us, the normal ones, and below normal, of course, but even the normal ones, they have a type of contempt. Like, why should you even have a libido when you're just you? And this bothers them. They're entitled to satisfaction of theirs. Yours is a nuisance. This was evidenced by a man putting up a dating profile somewhere in Ireland or Northern Ireland, one of the two. And he said no mental health issues, no motivational post or spiritual post, because this is a sign of a mental health issue. Some other things he said. His standards were very similar to the standards that women have for men to meet. He got drugged for that. He's getting drugged for that. I've said, don't approach Western women. If you're going to make an approach someone else. If you're going to get with a Western woman, she needs to approach you, because that's the only legally safe way for you all to even be together. I didn't get drugged for that because most women don't listen to my stuff, but one woman heard that and got pissed. Oh, hell no. The one thing y'all need to be doing, and you don't even want to do that. No, bitch, you're right. I don't want to see other men doing that. Not in the West, no. You see, the most likely answer to the question, will you give me your phone number, is that's ridiculous, or hell no, why would I do that? That's the most likely answer. Now, considering the statistics on that, there's no reason for men to ask that question, and a lot of men don't. So, consequently, you're just going to have to deal with the fact that many of you at a young age didn't set the situation up like it is. You were born into it. But you've not sent the message that men would need to have sent in order for men to even know that you get my drift. Men would have to have a message sent to them that, you know what, it's all right to ask. It's all right to have the discussion. It's all right for us to talk about it. Should we trade numbers or not? You've got to understand. You've got to come to the realization and the understanding that No, actually. Um, we men are stupid when we make approaches in the West. Unless, of course, we really don't know what the stats are. And that's really what it's taken. I mean, the game itself actually weeds out the most intelligent and informed men. Because if they're informed and intelligent, they would look and say, statistically speaking, this is a fool's errand. Why would I make approaches? So they don't step out and form couples. So one thing that definitely cannot happen is that women don't have a chance to get used to men that are intelligent. They don't have that option. It's sad, but they don't. So what winds up having to happen is that that women have to get used to men that are just not that intelligent and informed. But anyway, because of what's going on now, because this is war and these are traps, and women have weaponized the male libido against men to make sure that men will never find sexual satisfaction that is not offset by some greater stress. I didn't just say that comes with some stress, but that is offset by a greater stress than what he could possibly relieve in the walls and the cervix and birth canal of a woman. Gentlemen, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to find ways to lower your libido. I'm not going to tell you to buy robots. I'm not allowed to tell you that. I'm definitely not going to tell you the trick, because you're still giving in to the libido and at your expense to a lady's benefit, even if only financial. What I will say to you, though, is that fasting does work for most men, which is why it's prescribed in our religion. I also know that soy products do not decrease the testosterone, but they will somewhat increase your estrogen. You can find the dose that works best for you. I know that, unfortunately, there's something else that will decrease the libido, but I don't want you to go through that. Stress and fear do decrease the libido, but I want you to have lives with little stress and fear. So I'm not going to tell you to go and seek these things out. But when you come across them, they do decrease the libido, although it may be temporary. I will say to you that you find out whatever it is that's going to decrease the libido, nutritionally speaking, and you take it. Or you cut back on your intake, meaning you fast, whichever the case is. You do this. You do it because you're going to have to. You see, there are going to be men that are going to say, that's not your role as a man. Your role is to self-improve and become the man with whom she wants to cheat, instead of just being that beta male on whom she wants to cheat. No, it's not. I'm going to tell you why. That doesn't stop. That weeding out process of women does not stop when men meet some kind of threshold. That's not the way it works. Women eliminate by comparison. You see, that's why it is that this man is being dragged, because he put up a dating profile with standards of mental health. We already know in the United States, a very large number of women are taking some sort of psychotropic medication. If these numbers, if it was the same thing for men, even though most of these men were already single and don't have an option to not be, if it was just the same percentages for men, women would sit up and say, we can't even find a sane man. They all crazy. That's what they would say, and they would not apologize for it. I want you to keep that in mind too. Your job is to be Jesus and Superman, messianic. And even Jordan Peterson said that women apply great pressure to men to be these messianic type figures. The problem is we don't apply that in response. That's where the issue comes in. The solution is going to be whatever it is that will lower our libido so that they can't weaponize them against us. Because believe you me, it's crazy, but it's true. They will weaponize your libido against you, and they have a libido that can match yours. I'm sorry, guys. I don't promote celibacy, especially I don't live it as a Muslim because I'm married. But I can't sit up and tell most of you to marry while you're in the West. Now, when you get old and you've got, you can leave the West, sure, but I can't sit up and tell you this while you're living in the West to get married. I can't tell you to fornicate. I hate celibacy as a practice, but I guess a temporary celibacy while you're stuck in the West may be the best thing. And as you get older, it gets easier anyway. But it can be done. It is possible, it's just sad. I don't promote it because there's a particular church that had this as a policy. And, well, you know that there are now a lot of sexually traumatized victims from childhood that are now grown. This is serious. But I can say that unfortunately, because it has been forced even on men that wouldn't qualify to be called incels, it's still being forced on men who know what the game is and who want to be safe. Their mind is made up. You are not going to have a healthy and sexually satisfying relationship or experiences. Not in the West. They're going to take you through some hoops, through the ringer. And what we can, one of the major ways we fight back is that whatever it takes, mostly it's fasting, but we lower the libido. And we need to do this until the day that OnlyFans is not profitable for them. We need to do that. Because think about if you as a man decided to open up an OnlyFans account and get women to pay. Doesn't matter how long you've been in the gym. Even the ones that like your picture, you would get compliments and insults, but you wouldn't get money. And even the ones that like your photographs wouldn't put any money in your pocket. If they actually want you, you'd have to screw them for them to spend money on you. And some of them, if they spend money on you, then say, well, I shouldn't have to screw you. I spent money on you. It's crazy like that. They got all these defenses, walls, and barriers up, but they crazy, taking psychotropic medications. You have standards similar to theirs, and you're insane. You're not allowed to have standards in their minds. But boy, when you learn, and when you're able to decrease the libido, so many things become so much clearer. And I can tell you now, the goal is to make OnlyFans unprofitable for them, so unprofitable that it's a stupid idea for them to have. Just as dumb as it would be for you if you never picked up a weight to try to do the same thing. And understand this, if you pick up a weight, you're going to have compliments and insults, but you're going to have insults from women saying things about you for no reason other than just to make sure that you don't develop the same sense of self-esteem or get the same ego boost that they crave and demand, and without which they go insane. But they don't want you to have that. So they're going to be women that like what they see and they still going to try to insult you. You look like you obsessed. Like you spend all day long picking up weights and looking in the mirror. What you do for a living? You ain't got time to work if you're doing all that. You a little bit too big. You look like you're on steroids. That's why you ain't filling up them Speedos with all that muscle but no meat. These are the kinds of insults you're going to get. So when you lower the libido, they don't have any part of you they can weaponize against the rest of you. Because believe you me, they have libidos too, but one thing they would never let you do is weaponize that against them, unless, of course, you're part of that 13 to 7% that they all want and for whom they're willing to compete and on whom they're willing to spend other men's money. So long as they didn't have to work for that money, they'll spend other men's money. Now, that little minority, okay, fine, that's different. But understand this, let's say all of us went that self-improvement route. Well, like my man Boat Ladola said, if all of us were in the gym, they'd still eliminate about the same percentage that they're already doing. They still would. They'd eliminate and eliminate and eliminate until they're right back at the same problem. They have to understand the rarity of men. That's why it is that they don't start to appreciate normal men until they get old and they don't have any SMV left anymore. At least not for most men. That's the reason why. That only then at that point can a normal, regular, run-of-the-mill man have any kind of appreciation for the things about him which are good. Think about it. Most of you will never be appreciated by a woman that's young enough for it to matter. You just won't be. Not especially in the West, but in many places, really. You're just never that valuable. Now, she becomes a widow. That's different. See, in other countries, not only single mothers, but even widows will start to value you in ways that a woman that's never been married before would not value you, because she knows that she's got options because she's never been married before. Your good does not count in your favor in many cases, and this is part of why I would sit up and I would tell many men, you have every right to be offended, highly offended, by their standards and their demands that you don't have any. But gentlemen, you're going to have to lower the libido while you are young. That's the funny. It's sad, but they know that young men naturally would have the strongest libidos, and that's when they're going to do the most weaponizing. So it's jacked up, but you have to lower it. And fortunately, fasting has been revealed as that which will do it. Fortunately. But we're just going to have to lower it, because right now, at this point, they have no reason to stop and think about how foolish and how stupid they are in Western nations. Nothing's forcing them. And you know what? That really shouldn't matter. What matters really is your safety. What's best for you? And unfortunately, you'd have to do this to yourself in order to maximize your safety, because yes, they want to marry you after they've ridden the cock carousel. Yes, they want you to pay to spoil them, to take care of them, but not all of you will be able to afford to do that. However, that's still what they're looking for. Yes, they want to leave you at some point. Yes, they want to take as much of your resources as they can when they do leave. I was one of the lucky ones, but many of you, especially if you are successful, they're going to leave and try to take even more than if you were not successful. And yes, when you're making alimony payments, if you wind up subject to alimony, they're going to take that money and spend it on someone else. On another guy. Yes, they will do that. Yes, these women, when you're marrying them and taking care of them, they're going to want to take vacations to places like Jamaica. Yes, with their friends. And yes, they're going to take some of your money and pay some man to dig them out while they're there. Because you know what? They get points from their friends for doing it. Especially if their friends are doing the same thing. If their friends are doing the same thing and your wife doesn't, she knows they're going to lose trust in her. Not only that, even if they're not, the fact that she's married, she knows doggone well they're going to clown her for being faithful to you if she does that. They ain't got no respect for you. They don't encourage each other to have respect for any men, really, in that regard. It's just they have less disrespect for the men that they're willing to pay to dig them out. That's all. But they got more disrespect for you because, you know, once they've locked you in and you're in this commitment, you're married to them, you're no longer what they were looking for. It's sad to say, but they're pretty much, their goal is to turn the men they want into the men they don't want and then leave them for someone else. That's the oddest goal I've ever heard. But that's what they got. So for you to avoid all of this, you have to take away the hold that they have. Now, the hold is there naturally for a reason. But something is going so wrong that it doesn't even serve that purpose anymore. They've convinced us they don't have the libidos we have. Sometimes they don't. Or really, they just don't have those kind of feelings for most of us. That's all. But they have the libidos. They just aren't excited by the majority of us. I think it has more to do with the brain than it has to do with biology. However, that's what it comes down to. Yet and still, they will even deny themselves to weaponize yours against you. For what? It doesn't even help them in the long run. They're still willing to do it. I hope that one day everything I just said will no longer be true, and in the meantime, I hope it helps. Thank you for listening, and I'm sorry I didn't have more positive news. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum.